Collective. If history moves in cycles, then maybe one of the most important questions we can ask is how did people survive the last major cycle of instability? Because the greatest generation didn't survive through comfort, they survived through adaptation, community, resourcefulness, discipline, faith, practical wisdom. And maybe there's something to their survival strategies that modern society desperately needs to remember. Before you can navigate any major cycle, you first have to evaluate your current position. And honestly, the best way I can explain this is through a game of chess. In chess, you cannot move wisely if you don't understand what pieces you have, how they move, where they're positioned, what strengths you possess, what vulnerabilities exist, and what the opposition is doing. You also have to understand what phase of the game you're in, the beginning, the middle game, or the end game, because strategy changes depending on position. I think many people right now are trying to make moves emotionally without first evaluating the board clearly. So before panic, before rushing into survival mode, pause and assess honestly. Questions to ask yourself honestly. What is your current position in this cycle? Are you financially stable? Are you overextended? Dependent on the system? Beginning from scratch? Rebuilding after a loss? Finally awakening to patterns? What skills do you currently have? Can you grow food, budget, repair, teach, create, adapt, communicate, build community? Because during difficult cycles, skills become assets. What is your relationship with money? Do you avoid looking at finances, spend emotionally, fear scarcity constantly, attach self worth to income? Do you understand stewardship? What is your level of emotional intelligence? Because pressure magnifies emotional patterns. Can you regulate your emotions under stress? Discern manipulation? Maintain peace under uncertainty? Communicate clearly during a conflict? How adaptable are you? Can you pivot? Can you unlearn outdated thinking? Can you release ego long enough to grow? Because one thing history teaches us is this: the people who survive major transitions are not always the strongest. Often, they're the most adaptable. And once you understand your current position, then you can begin building strategy. Because awareness without action creates anxiety. Preparation creates resilience. Once you honestly evaluate the board, the next step is repairing the breaches. Because awareness alone changes nothing if you refuse to strengthen the weak areas. And I want to say this carefully because I think many people are realizing that some of their struggles didn't start with money itself, but their relationship to it. For me personally, I had to confront a scarcity mindset. And when I traced the origin of it, a lot of it came from childhood. I used to hold on to everything, overstore, overkeep, overattach, because somewhere deep down, my nervous system believed, what if there isn't enough later? And what's interesting is that energy eventually showed up in my relationship with money too. Because when you operate from fear constantly, you unconsciously send a signal of lack, not trust, not flow, not stewardship, fear. So, one of the things I had to learn was to release what no longer served me, not just physically, but emotionally too. Because sometimes clutter isn't just clutter. Sometimes clutter is fear stored up in a physical form. And when I began purging things that no longer aligned, I noticed something interesting. I created room mentally, emotionally, and energetically. And I eventually had to completely rethink what money actually represented because I realized the dollar itself, it's just paper. But the true value behind money is time, life force, energy exchange, human effort. So now when I make a decision, I evaluate transactions differently. For example, if I spend $50 eating out, I don't ask myself, can I afford this? Instead, I ask, what is this transaction creating? That $50 may equal 2 hours of my husband's time. But if that transaction frees up more time for me to pour energy into my business, to create, to build, to rest, then the actual transaction may be worth it. That is discernment, not impulse, not shame, not fear, discernment. Because stewardship is not about never spending, it's about understanding value, energy, timing, return, sustainability. And I think that many people right now need to repair their relationship with money, consumption, scarcity, self worth, emotional spending, survival thinking. Because sometimes the greatest breach is not external. Sometimes it's internal program that was never questioned. And once you begin repairing those internal breaches, you stop reacting emotionally to the cycle and start navigating it intentionally. And once you evaluate the board and begin repairing the breaches, the next step is learning how to capitalize on your position. Because even during difficult seasons, there are still opportunities, resources, and advantages available. But sometimes fear, pride, shame, or comparison can stop people from seeing them. For me personally, when I became a stay at home mom, it was a major adjustment financially. My husband became the sole income for our household, and honestly, it forced me to think differently. I had to learn how to maximize our position. I learned how to make more meals from scratch, become more intentional about nutrition, stretch resources further, reduce waste, think creatively instead of emotionally. At the time, we also received SNAP benefits, aka food stamps. And while the support helped us, it also opened up a door to something bigger, gardening. Many people don't realize with SNAP benefits, you can purchase seeds, seedlings, or food producing plants. And in some areas, it can also reduce or eliminate the cost for a fishing license. Even local farmer markets sometimes offer programs like double bucks, meaning if you spend $50 in SNAP benefits, you'll receive $100 in purchasing power for local food. And honestly, for me, to even discover these opportunities, I first had to get past the shame and stereotype people attach to women of color receiving assistance. Because eventually I had to stop asking, how do people perceive me? And start asking the right question. Am I doing the best that I can with the position I currently have for myself and for the people that I love? That shift changed everything because survival isn't always about having the perfect position. It's about learning how to use your current position wisely. And I want to say this to the collective clearly: there is always a way forward. Even if the position is uncomfortable, even if the resources feel limited, even if you're rebuilding. Sometimes wisdom is not found in abundance first. Sometimes wisdom is developed through stewardship. And this is why comparison can become dangerous. Because while some people are focused on appearance, others are quietly learning resilience, adaptability, resourcefulness, sustainability. And those skills become extremely valuable during challenging times. Once you begin evaluating the board, repairing the breaches, capitalizing on your position, there is another lesson that history teaches very clearly. You must discern your environment carefully. Because during unstable times, not every distraction is harmless, not every connection is aligned, and not everyone around you wants to see you build successfully. There is an ancient phrase, bread and circus. The idea was simple: keep people distracted long enough, and they stop paying attention what truly matters. Constant entertainment, constant noise, constant consumption, constant emotional stimulation. And honestly, I think modern society has perfected distraction. People are overwhelmed with social media, comparison, outrage cycles, gossip, drama, impulsive spending, dopamine chasing, endless consumption. And over time, these distractions can create stagnation, financial setbacks, emotional exhaustion, broken focus, vulnerability to manipulation. Because distraction lowers discernment. And I think it's especially important when you're trying to build something meaningful, because every time you begin improving, you may notice increased distractions, conflict, emotional chaos, draining relationships, people pulling at your attention. Not every interruption deserves access to you. This is why community discernment matters. Ask yourself honestly: who encourages growth? Who constantly pulls me backwards? Who respects my boundaries? Who benefits when I stay distracted? Who supports my healing? Who drains my energy? Because some people build with you, and some people unconsciously sabotage the momentum through negativity, dependency, manipulation, chaos, distraction, lack of accountability. And if you're constantly pouring energy into dysfunction, it becomes difficult to build stability. Sometimes growth requires strong boundaries, reduced access, intentional focus, quieter environments, less outside interference. Not from arrogance, not from superiority, but from stewardship. Because if you're trying to build peace, financial stability, emotional healing, family structure, business, discipline, purpose, then protecting your focus becomes necessary. Before the next video, take your time to honestly evaluate: what position are you currently in? What internal breaches still need repair? What resources or opportunities are already around you? What distractions are draining your focus? Who truly supports your growth? What boundaries need strengthening? Because awareness is the first step towards building differently. The greatest generation survived crisis not because life became easy, but because they adapted. And maybe this is what this moment is asking from us too. Not panic, not paralysis, but wisdom. Take your breath, protect your peace, learn practical skills, build community, and create something strong enough to survive this season. If this message resonates, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.